What a piece of shit program.
Program, are we live? Hello? You confirm.
Hello?
Can you confirm? Hello. We're good. Yes. let us go ahead and restart. We're going to pretend that there was no technical difficulties, but I think we're golden now. Hopefully I am not too loud compared to these fuckers, because shit was kind of weird. But let's just restart right where we picked up. Pretend like it didn't happen. So, hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Discussioneers. We have learned a lot since last episode, and that is the lesson of we talk too much. So we've already decided to change the structure of the show a little bit that I think will benefit everything. So we're going to still have a main topic, or topics, depending on the day, and we have some more Unearthed Arcana shit coming up. By the way, my name is Matt, BB Quasar. I'm joined with Bryce as well, as from before, Nate as well, a kitten, and we have swapped out Curry for someone else. We have Brian Gunglunganar. Didn't mess it up that time. Who's apparently asleep. Great. What a great choice we made on bringing you on the show. So, yeah, we have changed the structure up a little bit, and whereas we will be focusing now for the first segment of the show on our main topics, or still take topic-related questions from you guys and kind of go from there. And then after that, we're going to jump into what we're calling the bonus action, because it's a fantastic name, which is the second part of the podcast where we open it up to any question, any and all, fair game, talk about any tangents that we want to, that we may have generated from the main topic, as well as just anything we want to talk about. So the bonus action will typically probably not be as long as the main topic, but either way, we're basically splitting up the podcast into 2 parts. We will be still uploading it to YouTube, but we will be uploading the parts separately. So that way the content is more specific to our main shit and then our rambling, whatever it is. So, that being said, I think I got through it a lot faster than I did a minute ago before the technical difficulties. Did I forget anything, Bryce, or anybody?
I think we're good. Hopefully.
I hope so. So let me know, guys, in the chat as we're going on, because this is technology's being weird today. Let me know if the audio levels are good, or if I need to turn anything up and down, blah, blah, blah. That being said, let's jump into it. Before we get started on our main topic, which will be more Unearthed Arcana looky-loos from some of the recent stuff that was dropped, we have, to honor the tradition we established for first episode, which means we have a new person here. Brian, you weren't on the podcast last week, so we're going to put you in the spot here. It's tradition around here that you will now need to tell us about your first time playing the game. Specifically D&D in this case. Tell us your memorable moments, how it all went, everything. Give us that juice. How was your first time playing?
First time playing was definitely not the funnest, because first time playing was like 14 years ago, and it was in 3rd edition, and all I've been doing is reading the book for the D&D's player handbook that I found, and had no idea what I was doing, and my uncle was like, okay, make a character. And didn't explain to me anything on the character sheet.
Now, did he know the rule?
I actually don't know to this day. I think he just told me to make it and was just winging it the entire time, thinking he could just kind of read like a storybook kind of thing.
Okay.
And yeah, all I remember from my first time ever playing was going room by room in an old style like RPG dungeon, fighting goblins, and that was all it was.
So it got cut out due to the technical difficulties, but you mentioned before that, so you played with your uncle, and it was just a one-on-one, right? He DM'd for you, and it was a solo play, right?
Correct. It was just a one-on-one.
You never played with like a party until, was it up until you joined the Dungeoneers that you played a proper group?
The Dungeoneers were the first group that I played with.
Okay. Interesting. Was there
in all that time?
Oh yeah, go ahead, Brett.
Sorry, by the way.
Yeah, that was my first experience.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Actually, yeah, no, my first experience playing with a party, nobody knew who I was, and then almost 2 episodes later, I got shot 4 times by my ally.
Sorry, by the way.
Yep. But no, that was it.
Do you have any memorable moments from your first time playing with your uncle? Did you do any really cool shit, or?
I got hit with a fireball, and that's what ended the campaign.
So you died. He killed you.
I died. He killed me. We were like 3 hours in, and I guess he got tired of it, and he's just like...
I just picture fireball. 80 damage.
There was a goblin mage at the end of the hallway. I'm like, okay, I want to shoot it with my bow. He's like, okay. He cast fireball. What's fireball do? He rolls a lot of dice.
Not all of them were D6s. Just got a handful of
Yeah.
dice. Was like,
No, I don't remember what he
That
rolled.
seems
I
rough.
just know it. He just told me it killed me. He didn't tell me what the damage was. He's just like, you died. So that was my first experience playing D&D.
I hope we have somehow improved upon that stellar performance.
Now,
that your uncle
now I
gave.
just die falling after meteors. I did steal the book from him though. So, you know.
Okay, revenge.
Well, that's revenge. Yeah.
Yeah,
Revenge.
now I can run those campaigns where I kill off my players.
I'm gonna put you on the spot even further, real quick. And I know if we want to get to that juicy Unearthed Arcana, but I've heard rumors, and by I've heard rumors, you've told me specifically, Ryan, that you've recently started DMing a game of your own with some coworkers. I think. How's that been going? How was your first time DMing?
Well, thankfully it didn't turn into the chaos that I told you it was going to be. 14 people didn't show up to this session. Only 8 people did. And I started running them through a custom campaign I made, starting them off with a little mystery where they had to solve why people in a harbor town were going missing. And it went pretty well. Everybody seemed to be having fun until I started going down my old chaotic pathways of attempting to kill them all from random things. But, I mean, it went well.
Nice. Any memorable moments?
One of the newer players, she wanted to be a bard really badly.
Sure.
And her first thought is, I want to go talk to the farm animals to try to figure this out. I
Okay.
could have told her that talking to farm animals was not going to be a good idea. But no. So I was like, okay, go ahead. So she cast Talk with Animals. And the first thing she tried to do was talk to the goat. That didn't end very well. And then she's like, okay, I'll go talk to the chickens. Chickens aren't very good at conversations. And yeah, she just kept blowing spell slot after spell slot, trying to talk with every different animal on this farm until I had to pity throw a dog out there. The dog actually assisted her.
Oh, there you go.
And then I took it away by making a tentacle come out of the well and almost kill her. That was the
Jack.
most memorable thing.
Fair enough. Well, sounds like fun. I'm glad. And now, is this something you've played on a regular basis, or was it just a one session, or?
So far, we've done one session. I was going to be running a special Halloween themed game for them on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
But due to one of my managers who works there having a hernia surgery, we canceled that for his sake. And we'll be continuing it probably on the 5th.
Well, I wish you the best of luck.
It's a late spooky episode.
We will, we'll leave it there. So it's interesting that we've had a lot of our players in the show kind of branch off and start dipping into their own DMing. We touched on that a little bit last episode as well, but it warms me heart. It's like a disease, but it's not a disease. It's like a good contagion kind of spreading throughout the.
That's part of something we can start talking about in the bonus section, because I have an interesting sort of theory on why that comes to happen, which I don't think is anything new, but.
And we'll save that for the bonus section. So let's get to the juice, get to what we've been waiting for, not spend 14 years doing the intro stuff like we did last time. So we are going back to not obviously the last released Unearthed Arcana document, but the one before that. When was that? Do we remember when that was posted?
I can look.
I think it was just the week before.
It was
it a week
literally
or two?
A little after a week before that.
Interesting. Okay. So this, he looked up the exact date. This particular Unearthed Arcana included 3 more subclasses that we're going to talk about today. It included a Twilight Domain. What? Sorry?
3rd of October.
Oh, okay. So it was
a little over a week before.
3 weeks ago.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. So, it includes the Twilight Domain Cleric. It includes the Circle of Wildfire Druid. And tops us off with the a wizard subclass called Onomancy, which is its own little gem of its own. So we're going to, now that we're not kind of rushed, spend a little bit of time on these and kind of go over some honest opinions. We'll start it right in order of the document here. We have, on our end, I know you guys can't see it, but we have these little charts so we can reference with knowledge the comparisons of them versus what's currently published. We're not comparing with other Unearthed Arcana stuff. Kind of go from there. So, starting with the Twilight Domain. This cleric domain is all about it was interesting because when I originally thought through this, I thought it might have been like Feywild based because Feywild's in like perpetual twilight, at least as written. But it doesn't seem to really be that way. It seems to be kind of darker. Should we just read the intro text for this, or
Sure. Do you want me to run through things for? Because actually, there was an interesting tidbit I had going into this that
No, go for it.
On the same idea of like, so the Twilight Domain, so this governs the transition of blending light into darkness. It's it's all about the transitioning of life to death, rest and discomfort, that kind of thing. What you are thinking of is like it typically Twilight is something for the Fey Wild. There is actually a Druid on Unearthed Arcana. I don't think it's published yet.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's where I
Twilight
got confused.
Circle of Druid, which is a Fey thing.
Interesting, but that didn't get
The thing
published, so
is,
I can't
there
really
are-
compare
there are-
that. But
Yeah, but there are now 2 different Twilight subclasses for for different classes.
well, assuming the other one gets published, but 'cause this
Yeah,
one might not
that
have been.
Using it all.
But so yeah, this
So-
one is the transition from light into darkness. So it's very
And it is
dark.
a martial cleric. As starting at first level, you gain proficiency with martial weapons and heavy armor,
Which
so
isn't
you get
uncommon. I
those-
mean, some of the other classes do
No.
the same thing.
most of them do actually give you that.
70% of the cleric domains
Yep.
are.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's a majority of them do actually give you that proficiency.
Interesting. Okay.
You also get your domain spells. At first level, you gain Fairy Fire and Sleep, which are good, yet perhaps I would say underused spells. I mean, something like Davos.
See,
used
I
Sleep, for
think
instance.
I mean the thing with sleep is at least in my opinion, it's a very useful spell early on in the game. But as you kind of progress, a lot of enemies tend to have more HP, and it's a bit harder to judge when that sleep will be super effective. And even then, it's only like a minute. So it's a
Yeah.
spell that is pretty strong early on. You can't argue a first level spell rolling that many d8s or whatever it is.
5d8.
But that's not bad for first level spell. Granted, it doesn't kill, it puts you to sleep, but still, like that's really good
Once
early
you're
on.
getting
But
to the
that
very first level where you'd find it most useful is pretty
Right.
good.
yeah, but it drops off
Like,
pretty
your
quick.
roll is gonna work on.
Well, you
something.
can't fill it out though, because no matter what, most of the campaigns you can use it pretty effectively on any NPCs. Because unlike the characters, most NPCs in the game don't actually level past
True.
first
True.
level.
True.
So if you go into a crowded bar, you can cast it knowing the people that are important are going to stay awake,
Yeah, or guards, stuff like
or
that.
guards.
Yeah.
That's
it
a fair point.
becomes. You can use it in a more flavorful way, but yeah, you're right. After like third level, it drops pretty hard.
I mean, granted, casting at higher levels, you get the extra 2d8, but it's not. Sleep's always been one of those spells that it just feels like very quickly as you progress through the levels, it becomes less and less useful. No.
That is true. At third level, you gain darkness and invisibility. Darkness a bit situational, but still useful. Invisibility just an all-around pretty awesome spell.
I feel like with this class, though, darkness is kind of a given. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
It's the
It
same as like
kind
a
of
warlock.
plays
You
into the
expect to
idea.
see it.
I mean, it's right there in the
fifth-
descriptor.
Fifth, you get Aura Vitality, an excellent spell for healing. One of the best healing spells for your bang for your buck. And Liamon's Tiny Hut, which I believe clerics are ritual casters, right? So
Correct.
Yep.
That's a ritual spell that is very, very good for long resting.
Which
It is very abusable. I've learned recently.
it's only it's normally like a wizard spell, right? It's not really
Yes.
Bard and Wizard.
interesting to see that they're pulling that for this cleric, but okay.
Yep.
In all
Actually,
honesty,
most
the
of
cleric
these,
having
if
that is
not, in
disgusting.
fact, I believe all of these, at least so far, are non-cleric spells. So unlike some other
Yeah, that's true.
subclasses, which will give you just cleric spells for free, these are specifically ones not in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, none of these
which is
are.
nice.
Oh, you're
Interesting.
right. Yeah, I thought maybe Aura of Life, but no, yeah, not a
Nope,
single
that's
spell.
paladin only.
Yeah.
Ninth level, you get Circle of Power and Dream, which is interesting. Dream is cool, flavor wise, and as well, just like being Twilight. That's kind of.
Did we skip over the
fitting.
7th level stuff?
We did.
We did. 7th levels are life and greater invisibility is what I. Oh, I see. I got
Better
Aura of Vitality and
invisible.
Aura of Life mixed together because they're basically the same fucking name.
Right. Hey.
Yep, Aura of Life, greater invisibility. I mean, greater invisibility is just, ridiculous because you just get advantage of a bunch of shit and it doesn't. and it's
Yeah,
so
that's
casting, so
very strong spell.
And having that always prepared as a cleric,
Yeah.
Yep.
that actually changes the game because you don't have to use a spell slot to have set aside for it, and you can just always be ready for it.
It's definitely a very, very strong spell, especially, I mean, obviously you don't have to cast it on yourself.
No,
You can cast it on any
exactly.
of your, you can give your fighter a free invisibility that keeps going, and he just constantly has advantage. That's
And
really
it's
strong.
interesting as well. Aura of Life kind of overlaps slightly, if I remember correctly. Getting a little ahead. There is something else in this subclass that has to do with creatures going down around you. But Aura of Life is just a 30-foot radius. If something is at 0 HP when it starts its turn within the area, it comes back up with 1 HP. Pretty good.
It guaranteed never die as long as you don't get one shot at by fall damage.
Yep. Circle of Power and Dream at 9th level, which Dream's an excellent kind of role play and utility spell. Doesn't really have anything. It's a 3d6 damage at most, which is not, that great. And you can get rid of someone, or you can cause someone to not get a long rest, which is useful. Circle of Power being the more kind of, powerful spell of the two. But
What does that one even do?
Circle of Power. It's a 5th level spell. It is only 1 action to cast. Until the spell ends, it moves with you for the duration. Friendly creatures in the area have advantage even on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. An infected creature succeed on saving throws made against, or when a creature succeeds on a saving throw against a spell or magical effect, they take only half damage. Or if they take no damage if they would otherwise take half damage. So
that's like basically having advantage on a saving throw, and then like having everybody in the circle have evasion.
It's almost
yeah,
like turn
and
off
it's a
AoE.
30-foot radius, so everyone
is
within 30 feet of
powerful.
you has advantage on fireballs and things.
Right.
And if they succeed, which they probably will take nothing, which very, very good.
Which
That is
is
very-
also very nice for
That-
the fact that it's concentration.
Yeah, and the
Right.
fact that it comes online literally about the part of the game where you're fighting a bunch of high casting spellcasters and like AoE type dragons and things like that.
It's
So I
verbal. It's verbal only. You don't even have to do very much. It's an action to cast, 30-foot radius, and concentration of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
This
the big one.
is
Is 10
a
minutes.
very powerful domain spell list. I mean, comparing
Yep.
to what's published out there, like there's other clerics that get some cool spells. But this might be the strongest list of free spells that you get prepared.
I mean, comparing it to some of the others, like Tempest gets Fog Cloud, which is just, in my opinion, like a weaker darkness. Others get, let's see. I mean, False Life is good at lower levels, but doesn't really, I would say, doesn't scale great for most classes.
Yes,
so
but
this
what
is-
about animal friendship?
Yeah, Animal Friendship as well. Not great because most druids or rangers can just talk and like befriend animals, anyways. But
The only
definitely
real
very
domain that
solid.
challenges this is trickery.
Which is already good. But continuing on, first level, you have your proficiency in the martial weapons and heavy armor. You also get Eyes of Night. You gain dark vision with no maximum range. You have
Yes.
infinite dark vision, which is
It's fucking
Infinite.
stupid.
I feel like
Ooh.
there's definitely some limitation
there's
because I
some- there's
feel like
some-
if you look up into space, you can't just see forever.
No,
Why not?
I looked into it. That does actually happen.
No, I
That's-
think it just means you have dark vision as far as your eyes could normally see. You can't look up into space and fucking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
you're still
there's-
limited to
there's
what you
visual
can see.
range.
There's some mechanics that you can abuse with that I found out.
Well, let's talk about that, Brian. Why is this so bad in your opinion?
It's not that it's bad, it's that it's insanely good. Because if you think about it, one of the biggest key factors in a lot of classes is like you play a human, you don't have dark vision.
Sure.
You play a Warforged, which is already an incredibly strong like race as it is, you don't have dark vision. Not only does this giving classes that are hampered by one of the biggest things the ability to ignore that, it gives like if you somehow can get like any kind of telescopic device, any kind of divinity, anything that would allow you to see someplace else, it carries through that.
That is fair.
That's
So
a good point.
Yeah.
like
So
for
mechanically,
instance,
maybe not broken, but like definitely,
Yeah.
I
It's
could see some
abusable.
situations where you could be like, no, I just see it. I see it.
I mean, I don't think it's that bad because you got to keep in mind, and a lot of people overlook this thing about dark vision. Is dark vision just basically allows you to see dim light as if it were bright light, and then dark light as if it were dim light. But when you're in dim light, that's essentially light. This is obscured light, and that means it, perception checks have disadvantage, and stuff
Yeah,
like
but
that. So
Keep in mind in the situations where your dark vision is or distance is important, you're going to be probably on the surface, not in a cave, right? And I would say like moonlight is dim light, right? That's not
Sure.
necessarily dark. So that's going to be bright light for you. So you're not going to have that penalty for using a spyglass and
True.
looking.
you are the ultimate Batman.
Basically, as well as an action, you can magically give this benefit to any number of creatures within 10 feet of you. this lasts 10 minutes, and you can extend that. You can give out this benefit equal to your wisdom modifier minimum of once.
So-
Gains on longer, so you can just give your whole party this infinite dark vision, which is neat. It's only for 10 minutes, so it's not like you have it for like all day or whatever, but still useful. Especially if, such as you have humans or someone in your party that
Right.
I know we've had our gripes that a lot of races have dark vision. There's very few that don't, but
Mhm.
even still, you'll usually end up with someone in your party that doesn't have it, and until they get like a goggles of night or something, this is definitely useful to be like, okay, here, stop bumbling around, or if you're gonna stealth and you don't want to have a torch or have disadvantage for being in darkness, then you can give them for a little bit
Right.
dark vision.
I do
Very
think you
nice.
also have to think is so dark vision is affecting most 99% of the time affecting the area where you are also going to be able to interact with those things, whether it be casting a spell or moving to that thing. Whereas you're like, oh my god, you can see for 3 miles as if there is no light or it is not dark. Sure, you can see 3 miles and it's not dark for you. That you're not going to be able to interact with anything, and how often is that? You want
Yeah.
your class to be able to shine at some point. You want to be
Sure.
able to go, I have something for this, and this is something for that.
I don't think it's cool. I don't think
Yeah.
like it's a bit situational. I think the best part is the fact you can give it to allies that don't have dark vision.
See, that's the
melee
part I don't
in
like.
stealthy situations. Really?
See,
Yeah,
I
so-
actually can play off that even more too.
Yeah, I think it's fine as is. I mean, having no maximum rays, basically it's the best dark vision in the game, and dark vision on its own has its own limitations. And sure, if you look through a telescope, like Nate said, that's a limited use, and even though that's kind of cool, it's your option to shine. But since day one of this game, dark vision has always been a thing that people complain about most as DMs. Which I can kind of get. I think a lot of that has to do with people's misunderstanding of how dark vision works. They assume that you have dark vision, so you can just see in the dark normally, but that's not the case. Obviously, like we've said, it's dim light, which means disadvantage on perception checks and stuff. But still, then you always gotta have those races that don't have it, which is like Brian said, a very low percentage of the races out there. But still, this basically means that who cares? You can when you need it, you just give those blindy boys some dark vision, and then it's once again a problem. Like, I can see a lot of people who already hate dark vision in the game hating this ability even more, just because not only does this person get exceptional dark vision, but now they're starting to give the races that don't have it for a reason, the very few limited amount, the ability to bypass that. And I'm kind of with that. I don't know if I like I like having stronger dark vision. That's completely fine to me. But being able to gift it to your allies, I'm not a big fan of that too much.
Well, see, the thing is like the whole gifting it to allies thing, it doesn't specifically say it has to be players, which is where the mechanic I was telling about breaks in. If you cast the Flock of Familiars spell and summon 3 eagles, you now have the ability to scout out an entire region of the world or an entire cave system with 1 mile dark vision that you can just transfer between 3 different basically scouts, and you just turn off any DM's planning or caves or any kind of dungeon delving more than normally you'd be able to with this Find Familiar spell.
I think Flock of Familiars is a spell that I don't remember where that's from, but I don't know if that's I don't think it's in Xanathar's or anything like that.
Even if it
that's
isn't
like
a Flock of Familiars, you can cast Find Familiar for a single eagle, and all of a sudden you have a creature that has an insanely high range of vision to begin with, and you can now give it dark vision, like that penetrates any distance, and you have
Yes, but even with like what Nate said, right? That distance usually isn't going to be a factor, right? Especially because dark vision usually comes into play when you're in a dungeon. And that's usually confined spaces, and even then,
Also, sounds like your DM needs to be more adaptable.
Yeah,
Well,
say that's
Pay
situational.
attention to your
That-
characters.
Yeah.
that brings me to this though, is because the Find Familiar can cast touch spells, you now have the ability to see any target from that range and get to it.
yeah, but I feel like a lot of familiars already have dark vision. It was like if you wanted to just pick a familiar with dark vision, you could just be like, "Oh, I have an owl. All right, cool. You have dark vision up to like 60 feet or whatever. That's gonna be fine." And keep in mind as well, like on average, at least how we roll stats, which kind of ends up with higher statted characters. At most you're gonna have what 3-4 uses on average. That's 30-40 minutes in a whole day that you can have this. Like, if you're traveling for an extended period of time, there's still going to be downtime where you have to have torches for your non-dark vision people. You're still going to have to deal with it, just not as much.
Sure. I guess it just depends on, it's kind of a situational thing, but it's
Yeah.
up in the air. But it sounds like we're kind of a mixed bag on that one, so we'll leave it to.
Yeah, there are definitely things that you can do to make it much stronger.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair. Let's go ahead and move on to this
Can-
next one, because I find this one pretty
Yeah,
strong.
this
This
is
is another
interesting.
first level ability, by the way.
Yeah, they get a fair amount for first level, which I think they get actually slightly more than most other clerics at first level. They get one extra thing.
I think so.
Because everything
so.
gets a bonus proficiency, but on top of Eyes of Night, they also get Vigilant Blessing. As an action, you can give a creature you touch, including yourself, or possibly including yourself, it's one or the other, advantage on the next initiative roll they make. It ends immediately after they roll, or you use this feature again. I don't like this.
This is strong.
I don't like
really
this for the
strong.
fact, the exact thing you just said. So with every cleric, for the most part, it's like domain spells, bonus
Mhm.
proficiencies, but that's not always the case anyway. Because like for instance, the trickery domain does not have bonus proficiency, and then
Neither
just
does the
one
grave or
ability,
the Arcana domain.
right? And then just one ability. The only
Grave
exception,
domain gets 2 abilities at first level,
but no bonus
and
proficiency.
they don't get their bonus.
So
yeah.
this one is, as of right now, the most front-loaded. Like you get a lot of stuff for first level,
And
more so
the-
than you would get for another.
The additional
another class.
ability, it isn't limited like once per long rest or whatever. You can give it's every single time you roll initiative, which most games is going to be anywhere from like 1 to 3, right? But someone is going to have advantage with that, like for sure.
Sure.
And
That's
it
yeah.
never
There's no limit
turns
to this.
off. And
And
I
it's
don't think
first level.
Just add again. You can use this as many times as equal to whatever.
That would
half
fix a
is
lot
left.
of
That would
this.
fix it. You just add
Yeah.
it to a wisdom modifier.
that's
I'd
all
say.
you need.
Which, well, actually, to be fair, I disagree. I think that would do nothing because again,
It's
Yeah,
long
the
rest
amount of
orientated.
encounters that you're gonna have.
yeah, that's like 3, 4,
Well, then just
3, 4
half
times.
of your wisdom modifier with at least.
Or
I would
just
change it to maybe like when you wake up from a long rest, you cast it on an ally, and you can't cast it again to the beginning of your next long or the end of your next long rest.
I would
And that
honestly just say Nix's ability. I think they already have a lot.
Yeah, it doesn't make too much sense. Like it doesn't fit any flavor wise.
Yeah.
other than just being a straight advantage and a boon to somebody. Like if you have a rogue in your party, all of a sudden that rogue now just gained immense ability.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
really
I
strong. I
mean-
think it's a little too much. They already get a lot, and I agree with
don't
Nate. I don't think it blends with the flavor of the class. It's just advantage on initiative, but why?
Yeah, I will say I think they're kind of this is one of the only Unearthed Arcana I think that's a little like sloppy with its I don't like using sloppy, but it's a little kind of
They're power
all over
creeping.
the place. Well, not so just with the flavor of it, right? Because they talk about being like all about transitions and stuff, but also it's like also literally about it says the knight has taught you to be vigilant. Like it goes from being kind of like a grave cleric, kind of like you're trained by a god or something of between life and death to literal like Twilight, which is again more of like a Feywild kind of thing. Yet there's not really like a Fey flavor to it. And to go on like what you said, BB, I feel like removing it doesn't really. I don't think that would be a great idea because I don't think Eyes of Night is strong enough to hold on its own.
Okay, I guess that's fair.
Compared to like some other things give you like some straight up mechanical benefits. Well, that's kind of arguably could be useless for an extended period of time. Like if you're not going into dungeon delvings, you
Yeah.
have like an urban adventure or something like that's just not gonna come to play.
Yeah, but I feel like they could have easily like combined it in some way. Maybe not do like a straight advantage roll, and they could have kept it so that it doesn't out level the other domains and the fact that it has 2 abilities and just make it like you can
would
you have unlimited dark vision.
What would you guys think to mixing them of instead of giving it to all creatures within 10 feet of you, you give one creature dark vision and they gain advantage on their next
Like you
initiative.
imbue
Oh, so
them
combine
with
it.
some type of
Yeah, that's-
combine it.
yeah,
So you
exactly.
choose one
magic.
person and you are
Yeah.
imbued with the power of Twilight. You can see like I can and will have that advantage.
That's a really good idea. I actually kind of
Yeah.
like that. I would.
And you can even keep it if you wanted to keep it in flavor with the class so that it's just not the whole you have advantage until you don't. You
Yeah.
can just make it like drain while you're in dark, you have advantage on your next
I mean,
initiative roll.
if we want to get crazy, I'd love to see if they want to do a class based on transitions, right? I'd love to see something where you get one thing and then once it does the thing, you get a different thing. Like
Kind of
you
like a sun and moon kind of thing.
yeah, like you'd
Like
start
while the sun's
you-
out, your fire. While your moon's out, your ice.
I don't know if I would like trade I like that, but like I don't know if it's tied to like time, but like you gain advantage, and once you've rolled initiative, after that, then until you long rest, you gain the dark vision. Like something
Sure.
that it you know
A trigger.
that's getting kind of like crazy with it, but I like just
That's
that came to
yeah.
mind. I would love a class like that changes as it does its
Yeah.
cool thing.
Well, that's obviously not the case here, but I think those are some
Yeah.
good suggestions. But I think we can go ahead and shelf that. So it looks like it's a little bit too front loaded. Maybe
Yeah,
condensing it, maybe tweaking a little bit. Let's go ahead and move on to the second level ability.
Yeah, so
Your
this is
Channel
pretty
Divinity.
standard. Yep, every single cleric just gets Channel Divinity, as far as I can tell. They get Twilight Sanctuary. You use your Channel Divinity as an action. You present your holy symbol, and a sphere of twilight emanates around you. It's a 30-foot radius, filled with dim light. Interestingly enough, moves with you and lasts for 1 minute or until you're incapacitated or die. Whenever a creature, including you, ends its turn within there, you can grant one of the following benefits. You can either give them 1d8 temporary hit points, which is fine for a little bit of buffer. That doesn't scale up, though, I don't think, which makes it kind of in future levels because temporary hit points do not stack. So at most, you're ever going to get 8 HP, which is going to be uncommon. The more interesting part, though, is you can end one effect, causing it to be charmed or frightened. Which, keep in mind, this isn't. I can't think of too many. Actually, no, there's a lot of situations.
There's a lot of stuff where Frightened and Charm comes into play.
Well, keep in mind, this isn't you are ending charmed or frightened, you're ending the effect causing it. So this means if they're affected by a spell that does like multiple things, you're not only breaking that status effect, you are removing the spell currently on them. Because there are certain spells
Oh,
that
true.
do
That do multiple things. Yeah.
It's kind of like a cleansing hand of a paladin, but you get
Right.
it
Yeah.
as a
N-
30-foot
that-
radius.
With that's the only issue I have with this is paladins by default already get just auras where they don't even have to cast anything. They don't have to use a Channel Divinity.
They
Just
exist.
walk near you and you're already cured of these things.
Yeah, and it's
maybe-
definitely lackluster.
You're
Yeah.
getting this at a lower level than paladins, but once your paladin's level 14 or whatever, it's like this is pretty much useless.
Do all paladins get that, or is it limited to subclass though?
That is
Uh,
all. The
it's-
only limited thing paladins get is going to be our protection that I have is Zeph in our campaign, which is I get to take damage for somebody, as well as another one, which is you have an aura of fear, which is I believe treachery based or a oathbreaker based paladin.
I think
rest is-
charms might be a subclass thing, but the frightened ability, the aura of courage, is I'm pretty sure
Is
every
universal.
Yeah, you can't be frightened, and you and friendly. So yeah, this synergizes incredibly poorly with a paladin.
If you have a paladin in your party, it negates the use.
which
of
is
paladin.
unfortunate because I find there's usually a lot of if you have a cleric, you know there's a high chance you might have a paladin because
They
there's-
just work together.
yeah.
That's,
A
I mean,
lot
it's
of times they
depends
sync.
on the
It's
group.
not always, but yeah, it
but-
depends on your group. Like
Yeah,
they-
don't like a death cleric. Yeah.
well.
Death cleric and a life paladin. It'll be fine.
So compared to things like, let's just take a pick what's the strongest, which
We
maybe
could
isn't
go
the best
off of-
example.
Forge domain.
Yeah, okay, let's go. I was gonna say Death Cleric, but that's kind of one I don't want to reference too much because that is from the DMG and is more of an example thing. It's like almost like their earliest Unearthed Arcana, which wasn't really meant to be used a whole bunch.
It's mostly meant to be used against as for a villain character, but some people use it
Yeah,
as a.
and they arguably have one of the best things. But let's do Grave
War
Domain.
Domain's pretty
Has
strong. Grave, yeah.
Grave is pretty amazing. As an action, you use your Channel Divinity. A creature within 30 feet of you has vulnerability to the next thing it takes damage from.
Yeah. Well, next
That's
next
pretty-
attack.
or next attack. So not AoEs, but a lot of spells and all. That's way better than this slight bit of health.
Right. Well, I
the
mean,
one
the slight
thing
bit. So the big thing is not really the health; it's the ending the charm or frightened effect, which is
Yeah.
great. If you again, it just depends. Like this is great if you're by yourself, but if you're with like a paladin, this channel divinity becomes useless because
Or monks that
certain
have
levels.
their cleansing mind and all
right.
those
So
sorts of-
this is a situational ability. Certain party comps, it's great. That's fantastic because
only-
ending charm and frightened's great. But other party comps, it's pointless because why would you use your resource when other people get it for free or whatever?
The only thing I'll say is maybe BB, because I actually don't know myself. If you're at 0 HP, can you gain temporary hit points and like bump you up?
That is a good question. I really don't know the ruling on that.
Brian is shaking his head no.
Yeah, I
You
don't
cannot.
think temp hit points bring you back. No.
Temporary hit points require your character to have a threshold of 1 HP, or else they are basically considered added on to a non-existent number.
I get you. That makes sense.
Okay, well, that's
Yeah,
thank you.
so,
That's good to know.
all right.
So
this
not
isn't just
only is the ending the effects charmed and frightened pretty useless. based on
You
party
can't even
comp,
use this as
but
like a last
the
resort
Yeah,
thing.
the temporary hit points are also useless.
Would it be better if
after
the temporary hit
fifth
points just
level-
became normal hit points?
I feel like if they maybe mixed in, like maybe they lowered the 1d8 to like a 1d4 and kind of made it like a really nerfed version of the Aura of Vitality or an Aura of Life.
It's level 2 though. I would say if it just went up with levels, which I
It
want to
doesn't scale at all from what I can tell.
Yeah, I would say that would be pretty. Like if eventually it was like 4d8 temporary hit points, that would be pretty decent because they just have to end their turn and get it. That's just extra health that you're getting at the end of your turn.
Yeah, as it is now, like you'll use it maybe once or twice at the beginning of your campaign, once in a shitty situation later on where somebody gets charmed or frightened and you don't have a way to fix it maybe.
And we'll keep in mind as well, here's the shittier part as well that I just realized. The auras for the paladin, you just have to walk by them and it just cleanses it. This, they have to end their turn within your
True.
radius.
True.
They stop near you. So basically you have to chase them down if they're charmed and hope that your movement basically will take place after theirs.
And even then,
before theirs.
when their turn then starts, they could just walk away.
Exactly. Like you have to hope they come to attack you.
Especially considering a lot of frightened creatures will try to flee
from you.
That's a good point. They might be running away from your aura. That's a really good point.
Borderline pointless.
Yeah, this is not a great divinity.
A little bit of a saving. Well, if this matters, do the paladin abilities affect you?
Yes.
Yep. You count as a creature within your own aura.
Yep.
So keep unless if you wanted to cure a frightened, because I'm pretty sure every single frightened effect is you have to use your full movement to try and leave. You'd have to do the math to figure out, well, they're gonna go this far. I'm gonna wait and catch them.
Well, actually,
otherwise they're just gonna walk out.
The ruling for frightened on a player is that they cannot approach more than 30 feet of the item they are terrified of.
I'm thinking of certain spells and stuff.
Yes. So as a player, yes, you can be frightened as long as your cleric stays that 30 feet away from the target. You could go to your cleric.
Okay.
But at the beginning of the enemy's next turn, if he has approached the cleric at all, you have to leave the cleric's area.
Yeah. Okay. So it's still. I think we are all in agreement. It's pretty a bad.
They could have just slammed in a whole you get the ability. They could have slammed in a whole different ability here, and it probably would have been better. Like I think we can agree.
You could take the advantage on.
You could have made the advantage a channel divinity instead.
Yeah,
you could have put this as a first level thing, and it's just.
If it was just your channel divinity was advantage on initiative next time, I would be okay with that because that's still pretty good. And eventually, you get more than one channel divinity for clerics. I think you regain it on a short rest. So like that's all around pretty good. Anyways.
Move on.
Level 6, you get Steps of the Brave. You draw strength from your connection to the Twilight and find yourself at home within the dark embrace. You gain 2 effects. You have advantage on saving throws against being frightened. And if you're in dim light or darkness, you can use your bonus action to give yourself a flying speed equal to your walking speed until the end of your next turn.
Wow.
This is literally the only reason the channel divinity exists. I just want to point that out.
What makes you say that?
This entire feature is based around the fact that you are in dim light and you have the advantage to being frightened yourself. If you place yourself in your aura, you now have a 30-foot fly speed.
That is a really good point. At 6th level, your divinity becomes amazing because exactly what Brian said. Because the aura says you're in dim light, so basically it just gives you the ability to fly forever.
Yeah, but then though,
But it only lasts a minute.
No, not just that. It says it's filled with dim light. Would you rule that like if you were out in the sun, would you argue that you're now surrounded by dim light that isn't?
Yes, that's literally the wording of the spell.
Yeah, if you follow the theme of the Twilight, you'd imagine that if you're in the sunlight and you cast a spell, but the lights around you dim like you're in Twilight.
Okay.
If you're in the darkness, it would brighten up like you're in like the sunrise.
All right. Okay, with that kind of ruling, I can definitely see that being pretty good. I think the fact that you have to wait 4 levels for that is pretty awful.
Yeah, absolutely. It sucks that you have to wait so long, but it does make your divinity actually useful.
It makes it so that it's worth using in like a pinch, but it doesn't make it a make it or break it for the class.
Sure.
It's considering you're basically using a whole turn for that because you have to action channel divinity and then bonus action fly.
Sure.
Which, to be fair, the fact that there's no limit on the fly makes it very, very good because in dungeon situations or even at night, you can just zoom around wherever you want.
Yeah, because you can activate the flying thing at any point. That doesn't have to be in your divinity. However, it's kind of ironic that they give you that whole you advantage on saving throws from being frightened when your channel divinity is on you. So if you cast that before the combat, you're always going to be able to end the effect.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it makes your divinity better and then also makes it redundant.
Right.
at the same time because you're basically nullifying it. So basically, you could look at this and just say 6th level, you get a fly speed,
It's basically, yes.
which is, hey, guess what? You could just play the Dark Monk and teleport in darkness anyways. So
Interesting.
Level 8, you get the Divine Strike. This is pretty standard, but this
Literally
is
every class
arguably-
has a Divine Strike at this level.
Not necessarily. Some of them get potent spellcasting. Very
Oh,
few. The
I
ones that
apologize.
don't gain.
all one of them.
It's
No, there's like 3 of them.
No, there's,
yeah, no, you're
there's
right. The
3,
Arcana
yeah.
domain
There's 3.
has
It's Arcana, Grave, and Knowledge.
Some of them gain Wisdom modifier to any cleric cantrip, which is very good. You're basically kind of like how warlocks can get charisma to their Eldritch Blast, or you can get like a Fire Master or whatever. But so this is a martial cleric, as such you get Divine Strike. So in this, unlike other things which do, some of them are really bad, such as the Trickery Domain gains poison damage, which is not very good. You gain
wanna-
psychic damage, 1d8 psychic damage, which goes up to 2d8 at 14th level on every weapon attack you make. Or sorry, once per turn.
Sure.
On a
You
weapon attack
can
make.
now PvP your Bear Totem Barbarian ally.
Yeah,
that's
psychic damage
a
is pretty good.
very good. It's not resisted commonly at all, so that is a very good, very very good damage type to have.
It's just a solid thing.
I mean, and that's obviously the whole point of the Divine Strikes for the martial clerics, right? Is that they don't get extra attack. Forgetting, of course, if you count like extra attack and whatnot from multi-classing, but they don't get extra attack on its own. So the Divine Strike is supposed to be a way to, at higher levels, to damage out your melee output a little bit by just, you don't get an extra attack, but you get a little bit extra oomph to your damage. But like you said, some of them are good. Some of them give you decent damage types. Psychic damage is not the only class that does it, I think. What is
No,
it?
Tempest, or no, I just saw,
Order
where was it?
Domain. The Order Domain
Domain,
is psychic
yeah.
as well.
So it's not uncommon. It's pretty straightforward. You have no issues with this at all.
Yeah, better than some of them, because again, poison damage, who the fuck wants that? Because almost everything
right.
is resistant in the late game to poisons.
Any basic element is usually going to become irrelevant.
Coming to 17th level, you have Midnight Shroud. You can harness the shrouding power of night to protect your allies and Stimmy?
STEM.
Stem? That's not how you spell that, is it?
I don't know how you say this word.
That's an excellent question. Your foes. Whenever you cast darkness,
Stymie.
there's your first level free spell you're gaining.
It is stymie, by the way.
Stymie?
Prevent
I don't like that.
the stymie is prevent or hinder the progress of.
Why not just use stem? A much cooler sounding word than stymie.
What if it's
Whatever.
Stamai? What if
I like
it's pronounced
Stamai.
Stamai?
That's not any better.
Stymie.
Oh, God.
So anyways, darkness for your first level free spell, you're getting there. You can choose a number of creatures that you can see, including yourself, equal to your wisdom modifier. They can see through the darkness. I hate this. This is the fucking worst thing. And I don't know why it's a 17th level ability. Because one, you're not getting darkness for free. You're getting it prepared for free, but you're not getting a free casting.
The first
It's
level spell,
limited
though, who
to wisdom
cares?
Modifier. And Shadow Sorcerer or whatever gets this for like level 2 or whatever they get their like level 1.
But the difference is, as a Shadow Sorcerer gets it by himself, this makes it so
Same.
your whole party is getting it.
Yeah, same with the Warlock. Like, yeah, you get double that yourself.
But why is this
But at
a
17th
17th level ability though?
Because allowing yourself to plop down in the darkness and have enemies not be able to see you while you can see them is pretty useful.
You can.
it's
your
not
whole party.
17th.
Yeah,
I don't think that's 17th
when you're
level.
fighting gods.
Yeah, we won't
and,
talk about the
like,
fact that 17th level, 90% of the things you're going to be fighting probably have true
just
sight or
gonna-
tremor sense.
We're
But
just gonna
Let me-
fly
okay,
out
let me
of the
compare
range
this.
of the darkness. Like
17th level War Domain gets Avatar Battle. You have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing damage from non-magical attacks. That, like, sure, a lot of things at 70th level are going to be magic. A lot of things won't be though, considering there are plenty of
mean-
minions and whatnot.
hell, even the Forge Domain, even if it's not as good, like the Forge Domain 17th level is actually trash. You gain immunity to fire damage, and you have resistance to non-magical attacks from the basic 3 attack types. Like
Yeah,
even that is by par better than this.
17th level for Tempest. You gain flying speed equal to walking speed forever, so long as you're not underground or indoors. You can just zoom around.
That is just broken. That's a different show.
I mean, there's plenty of races that give you that, but I will say, notably, and I believe I understand the design behind this. The highest level abilities for clerics are some of the worst, purely because the cleric base level class gets some very powerful things, such as divine intervention,
Mhm.
which kind of fits in for they get their own
Your
wish
spells
basically.
Are
Well,
damn good.
potential. Lucky roll.
Well,
but-
yeah, well, level 20 you get it for free, but
True.
yes.
I mean, that's level 20.
Still, I think this is a pretty awful 17th level ability for the cleric. It upsets me.
I would agree in the sense mostly that since it is 17th level, a lot of the things we're going to be fighting at that point are going to have a lot of ways to bypass their darkness anyway, like True Sight and shit like that. Which, darkness, I don't think, or even, I don't know if True Sight works on darkness, I think it does, but I mean, like, things like Blind Sense or Tremor Sense and stuff like that. There's a lot of really nasties out there that this ability would be useless on because they don't need like direct line of sight from just normal mundane eyeballs to see you. So I can kind of agree there where it's not, not on par with, the other.
As well, limiting it to your wisdom modifier makes no sense to me because, like, 70 level, just anyone you can see. Why not just, like, what if you have a bunch of, what if you have a party? Like, I mean, we have.
Your
like,
first
max...
level is unlimited. Why is this one limited?
Yeah,
You could give anybody you see, you could give an entire city if they're lined up in front of you the ability to see infinitely into the dark. But
what if your adventuring party has more than 5 people and you happen to have 20 wisdom?
You could just be, rather than doing limit to the wisdom modifier, just do like to any creature you choose within 30 feet or something. So
I would
it's
just
got limitations, but it's not.
Creature you can see, just like they can see through the darkness that you cast.
That's not so. The fact that it's a 17th level thing and darkness can be dispelled by any light magic.
So but it sounds like the consensus is useful situationally, not 17th level useful.
Overall, I'm not a fan of this. I think just bouncing. There's some very cool stuff about this that I enjoy, but I feel like it's outdone. Its flavor is outdone by other classes.
And it's honest. It's not. It's a unique thing. I mean, there's classic. Classic uses of like a warlock hitting their devil sight and being cast darkness by either multi-class or like this is not a new theory. Using darkness with some sort of way to bypass the darkness. It's kind of a thing that can be done in other class or multi-class combinations, however you want to look at it, at much earlier levels than the 17th level. So
yeah, the way I feel like this domain is literally you take it for one level and then you go back to leveling whatever you want because at first level you get the best that you're going to get from this class.
I mean, that's really why we revised the Ranger was to avoid dipping into certain classes to get advantage on initiatives. You could take one level of cleric and
all of a sudden you're proficient with martial and heavy. You have dark vision, and you give anything you want advantage.
Yep.
Final thoughts on the Twilight Domain Cleric as it is in the UA.
Thumbs down. I think it's underpowered, but I like the flavor. I just wish it was a little more interesting.
I think it's. Yeah, okay. I agree.
Yeah. Keep the theme, rework the abilities.
It's very underpowered after first level, but as everybody says, theme, the flavor, it's fantastic. I want to play one.
I want to play an updated
lean
one.
Into duality.
I have been playing an Artificer since its first revision when it
just
has been underpowered as
You're just
fuck.
like, let me do anything that's
but
not
it's
this.
Cool. So
hey, the Artificer's almost fully released, so
hey man, it's almost good.
Well, I mean, he's already playing.
Ability to shoot a gun.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe in this next one you'll be allowed to attack with your wand and your gun.
Oh,
moving on.
That would be great.
So that is the cleric. Let's move on to the Circle of Wildfire Druid. I love the flavor of this class. I'm going to put that out there right out the gate.
I'm gonna say, coming out, I think my opinion's gonna change as we go through. But overall, at a glance, I wasn't sure about the balancing of this thing being all that useful. But flavor-wise, this is pretty amazing. It's a circle of druids that understand the necessity for destruction to promote growth. It is the idea of torching down a field or a forest to then leave nutrients for something new to grow. Right? Is this kind of force for death so that there can be life? Very cool.
So basically, Circle of Wildfire Druids live in California.
Yes, California druids.
Yeah, that is as somebody who's lived in California, we can confirm.
Mm-hmm.
You were always on fire, except it doesn't make things better.
So, Circle of Spells, you at second level start, you gain the Firebolt cantrip, which is nice. You get a free cantrip.
Considering, I want to point out that Druid cantrips are pretty subpar compared to other classes. They don't get a lot of
They're
real good
not
cantrips.
combat related much at all.
There's some, but
I
it's very
disagree,
very limited. If you look over the Druid's cantrip list, there's not a lot of like all
I
the
disagree.
cantrips that have the
Shillelagh,
punch.
Magic
Don't
Stone, Primal Savagery. There are some good ones, but they require you to be kind of a martial character. There's not a lot of
That's-
like.
yeah, and
the
even things like
best-
Magic Stone's only a D6. Like it's intentional, I'm pretty sure, because Druids get like their wild shape and stuff, but their cantrip choices aren't going to pack as much of a punch when you compare it to other spellcasters, which is fine. I mean, that's what their intent. That's the intention, but just keep that in mind. By getting Firebolt, which is one of the top tier, cantrips, that's huge. That's huge for them.
And just getting a free cantrip already, like
It's already nice. Yeah. As well, at third level, then, once you level up again, you gain locate animals or plants in Scorching Ray as free preps. Obviously, you already have locate animals as a druid, but Scorching Ray is something that's not actually a druid spell and is very on brand. And one of my favorite spells, I think it's just neat. Fifth level, you get Fireball, not a druid spell, and a classic, and Plant Growth as free preps. Plant Growth being a druid spell. Seventh level, you get Aura of Life, which we saw previously is a very good healing spell.
they're
not
just
a,
slapping
not a
on
druid.
everybody now.
Yep. And
Everybody
Fire
gets it.
Shield, very on brand, not a druid spell. Basically, give yourself resistance to. Is it? I think it's to the fire damage. Because there's Ice Shield and Fire Shield are like part of the same spell.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fire Shield, I believe, is you have resistance to fire damage, and if you take
The
a
Warm
certain
Shield
damage-
is resistance to cold damage, and the Chill Shield is resistance to fire damage. So you get like the opposite,
It's the
basically, which I guess
reverse.
kind of makes sense. But so you can have the duality of Fire and Ice Shield, which is very good. Things that attack you take damage, very nice. Ninth level, you gain Flame Strike, and not Druid spell. And as we've seen in BB's game, very powerful for damaging something. And
why
Raise
Raise?
Dead, not a Druid spell.
That's a really random one to get
So
thrown in there, though.
no, actually, no. I know exactly why they did this. Look at the theme of the class, which talks about how Circle of Wildfire
Oh,
is
yeah.
meant to
If you go with the theme, that
burn
doesn't make
and then regrow. It literally, both free spells you get at every level is that, with the exception of third level,
Yeah.
is a little bit weird. But let's just start fifth level, seventh level, ninth level. So fifth level, Fireball, blow shit up, plant growth. It's literally
What do you mean?
word for word of how the Circle of Wildfire
it's
goes. You set
death
things on
and
fire
regrowth, yeah.
and then regrow it. It's
Also,
on
third level
par.
makes a lot of sense, baby. You can locate animals and plants to then Scorching Ray. So,
So you can murder them all.
you
Flame Strike, right? Attack, burn, scorch, raise dead, revive. It's literally they did this is intentional. They made every single
This does
free
the
spells.
duality better than the Twilight.
It does.
Yeah,
This is-
this
this is-
actually
which
does
is
play
our-
off of that.
This is super on brand, so I have no problem with it. I think for what the flavor going, it's on point. The spells are great. I mean, the whole shtick of the Circle of Wildfire is getting some more damaging, like wizardy spells.
Things you
that
wouldn't
fire
have.
based. Yeah,
Like,
things
you
you
might as
would.
well,
Yeah.
like something that always irked me was druids get one of the what is my coolest or one of my favorite spells is Flame Blade as well. It's very on brand. It's you gain a melee weapon that's just like a flame scimitar and that kind of thing, which for some reason is only druid spell for some whatever reason.
Great
I
spell
love
list.
it.
I think it's great.
This
Yep,
next one
anyways.
makes me so excited.
This is what the entire subclass, what you get next is basically what the entire subclass is based around. Like a lot of the things are buffing or modifying this with the exemption of a couple things. You gain at second level summon Wildfire. Using your spending a charge of Wild Shape, using your action, you can summon a Wildfire spirit rather than assuming any kind of form. Appears within occupied space within 30 feet of you, and each creature within 10 feet of the spirit, other than you, when it appears, so this does affect allies, must make a Dex saving throw against your spell save DC or take 2d10 fire damage. Level 2, that's very good, and you have multiple wild shapes. Very nice. Wildfire Spirit is friendly to you, and your companions obeys your commands. It has its own statistics below. Determines appearance and everything, all that good flavor. Uses your initiative count, which is nice. Takes its turn after you. And the only action it can take is the dodge action, unless you bonus action command it to take a different action, such as dash, disengage, help, or hide. And then manifest for 1 hour or until it's reduced to 0 HP. The stats, which I don't actually think are on our comparison document here.
They are not, but
They are,
they are very.
thankfully. I pulled up. I have the other document here. It has an AC of 13, HP equal to the Constitution modifier plus your Wisdom modifier plus 5 times your level in the class, which is a little weird.
I mean, the most important thing there is like the 5 times level, because as a druid, your constitution is never going to stay static.
Yep. So basically, we'll keep the Constitution of the spirit, which is +2. So I don't know why they don't just say 2, or that goes up eventually. But basically, the main thing's gonna be 5 times level, which is pretty good. Its stats are nothing to go home about. It's like Dex is 14, has a 15 Wisdom. Those are its highest stats, basically, with a 14 Con. Everything else is pretty low. Saving throws for Dex, Con, and Wisdom has 3 saving throws. Very nice. +4 nature. Immune to fire, as you'd expect, being a fire creature. Cannot be charmed, frightened, grappled, prone, or restrained. All very nice. Dark vision is 60 feet. Understands your languages. And has Soulbond, which is basically as you level up at certain points, it increases its own abilities. And it has, with your bonus action, you can command it to use one of 2 actions. It can do its attack, which is a ranged weapon attack, +4 to hit, range of 30 feet, that does 1d6 plus 2 fire damage. Not terrible. It's a bonus action being able to do that. And then they can fiery teleportation, which is a short, recharges on a short or long rest. The spirit and each willing creature of your choice within 5 feet of your spirit teleport up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space that you can see. Each creature within 10 feet of the space that the spirit left must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or take 1d6 plus 2 fire damage. Pretty good for a get the fuck out ability. You can send your spirit
level
in,
teleport.
very much. Send your spirit in and then get your allies back out and damage the things that were probably hitting them.
Now, what's important to note before we continue on our opinions on this, on the spirit's functionality and whatnot, the biggest thing that I want everybody to remember is similar to, I think, maybe only the Shepherd Druid, which is in Xanathar's. This is a way to use your wild shape in a way that essentially you can do it and then also have your normal ability to cast spells and whatnot. Because most wild shapes, which is just the classic turn into some sort of beast, right? You can't cast spells. You can only maintain concentration of spells while it's in there. So you get this little bonus thing, which I think, in my opinion, is very good, unless you compare it to like the Moon Druid, who gets to be shape into really good, strong stuff early on, and then eventually like elementals and stuff. But this is something that's useful, and as well as allows you full reins to all your spellcasting.
The one thing you do have to keep in mind, I think, with any druid subclass, though, is every time it says you have to do this instead of wild shape, you have to think, is this good enough to rival wild shaping?
Well, I don't think it does it say specifically you can't wild shape normally, or is this just the thing you can do?
You choose this instead.
Yeah, and so you're using up one of your charges, which means you're not getting the extra health and whatnot. But
not only that, but if you wild shape again, it does cancel the creature.
Oh,
sure, yeah, because you can only have one wild shape going at a time. I mean, that's fine. But my point is like there's certain druids that are built like this one more towards casting your spells. Like this is a class. Like look at those free spells; they're meant to be throwing out fire spells and dealing damage.
It's a druid with a powerful find familiar.
So normally,
it's almost like a spiritual weapon that you can use at range.
Kind of,
because bonus action you're getting to a ranged attack. Overall, pretty good.
It very much does the caster druid very well.
Yes, better than some, I would argue.
Like I said, it's great for a caster druid because it allows you to actually use your wild. Because a normal caster druid would not use their wild shape that much. Like actually, I have one in my.
This gets better if we continue. 6th level, you get enhanced bond. Whenever you cast a spell that deals fire damage, which is a lot of spells, or restores hit points, a lot of spells.
Sure.
While your wildfire spirit is summoned, roll a d8 and add it to the bonus to the roll. So you could do healing word and add a d8 of extra healing.
Yeah, that is really good.
Now, a thing that I want to point out though with the wording of that spell is you gain a bonus to one roll of the spell equal to that roll. It doesn't state that it has to be. Basically, it's only specifying that roll of the healing. So if you have a spell that heals multiple times, like it has a regenerative effect, you add a d8 to each regenerative effect.
No, so what it's saying is this. So you add a d8 to any of the rolls. So if it's like a health roll, you just add a d8 once to the health roll. But what you're onto your point is, because of the wording on this, since you gain a bonus to one roll, this could be a bonus to attack or damage
Yep,
as well.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you could choose to, I'm assuming, does
It's
it say...
basically a super powered bless for these kinds of spells.
Yeah, no, that's super strong. You can do it attack or damage or 1d8 to healing. That's a
That's
lot
very
of
good.
utility just for
While
having a
your
little fire
wildfire
boy
is
up.
out, you just you basically get a permanent like buffed bless while you have your wildfire spirit.
Yeah, that's really good.
As well, in addition, when you cast a spell with a range other than self, the spell can originate from you or the wildfire spirit. You can. There's a lot of stuff you can do with that.
Oh, just fireball yourself.
You could fireball from even further away, firebolt, you flame strike, whatever. You could do any because it doesn't have to be a fire-based spell or healing-based spell. It is just from there.
And the fun thing is, like, you can at the level you get this, I believe you have fireball, correct? Yes.
At 6th level, you would, yes.
And this is at the point of the game where fireball is still pretty relevant. And if you summon your wildfire spirit, you can summon it into a mob of enemies,
And then
cast
just
fireball
fireball
from
yourself.
it,
Yeah,
straight down onto the spirit,
Yep.
hit everything, and your creatures
Extra
immune to
D8
fire.
fireball that is also further away. Yep.
Correct.
Very
really good.
I'm liking this so far. 10th level, you get Flames of Life. You gain the ability to turn death into Flames of Vitality. When a smaller or larger creature dies within 30 feet of you, or your wildfire spirit, you can use your reaction to cause your primal flames to spring from the body. When a creature you see touches these flames, the creature regains hit points or takes fire damage, your choice, equal to 2d10 plus your wisdom modifier. The flames vanish after a creature has touched them or after 1 minute. You can use this equal to your wisdom modifier minimum once, getting back in a long rest. You can basically leave little like echoes whenever something dies for a limited amount of times that are either landmines or they just have
Right.
to run over them and gain healing.
Yep. Okay, I
I
want to point.
love this.
Thank God they didn't go the route of that fucking shitty healing spirit spell that were released as Xanathars that we banned personally. At least I do. I know a lot of DMs out there do as well. Basically, where that healing spirit spell that was like a thing that would constantly go on your essentially team could run around in circles getting a bunch of healing. They specifically put in there that once this is used, no matter to do damage or to heal, once it's touched by a creature, it's gone. So thank God they put that limitation in there because
I think this
otherwise
is a mechanic
I'd be
we
so
haven't
upset.
really seen before.
No, this is
I
the
love this.
first.
No,
I'm in love with this.
This is really cool. I like that. I love that. Like I said, it's limited to once per creature. It's really cool.
And I love the idea that these flames come up and your allies know to touch them. So they touch these flames and are healed. Then an enemy could be like, I want that. And they touch it.
An unintelligent enemy would be like, oh, I want to feel better. And then like set
I'd say
themselves on fire.
even a non-intelligent enemy might see.
I was gonna say,
the flames aren't any different. They don't look different.
If you're fighting
So-
anything that learns, they're just going to assume, well, if they're touching it and that's happening, what happens if I touch it? It may only
Yeah,
work
it might-
one time.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. But still, I
Pretty
love
cool.
the flavor of this.
It's pretty cool.
It's really unique, really flavorful. I'm really happy this class got
A+.
this.
14th level, you get Blazing Endurance. Your bond with your wildfire spirit is exceptionally strong, even fatal. Blows only fuel your defiance. If you drop to 0 HP and don't die, you drop to 1 HP instead and gain temporary hit points equal to 5 times your druid level.
Jesus
so
Christ.
broken.
Which is, at this point, 70 points of temporary health. Fucking massive, even at 14th level.
Yeah.
And each creature of your choice within 30 feet of you takes fire damage equal to 2d10 plus your druid level. There's no saving throw.
No, you just
They
take
just
damage.
Take that damage.
and
believe it or
gain
not,
70 points.
believe it or not,
There's also no saving throw on the previous one either, by the way.
Oh, you're right.
Oh,
even though it's a
shit, you're
spell.
right.
believe it or not,
They just take the damage.
Oh boy.
believe it or
Yeah.
not, I don't mind this ability. Let me explain. This whole class is all about casting, for the most part, your flame spirit. So you get all of these, like literally every single one of these class abilities relies on your totem spirit, right? With the exception of this one, which means that using your totem spirit, you're forfeiting the ability that druids have. You technically can still do it, but you're not going to do it very often to reshape into something with tanky hit points. Druids,
Yeah.
in most other classes, are super tanky because they can just shapeshift into things and get all those HPs that are drained before they touch themselves. This is a way to kind of counterbalance that. You're using your flame spirit. That means you're vulnerable. It's still only your hit points. So yes,
So
you
if
go
you
down
mind-
to 0 and you're going to get a bunch of temporary HP, and that's a crazy amount. Maybe a little too high, maybe scale it back a little bit. But I love the fact that, okay, maybe you're not using your B shape to get all your crazy hit points. Here's one way, which is, by the way, once per long rest. that you can kind of counteract that a little bit.
And flavor-wise, I love the idea of like the Phoenix. Basically, I can definitely see
Yeah.
this being like a Druid of the
Oh, yeah.
Phoenix
Sure.
kind of thing,
This
and
is
as well,
fun.
the flavor of you died basically. Oh, there goes my headphones. You died effectively. I'm not gonna keep talking while I refill the battery. Went down and are reborn in the flames, like even stronger, effectively, and damaging everything around you.
Yeah. It's very cool.
I do like the idea though that the fact that tell me if I'm wrong, but when you have temporary hit points as a druid, when you wild shape, does the temporary hit points carry over to the wild shape?
I think it does actually.
I'm
I
pretty
would
sure it
assume
does.
so.
Which
Ooh.
means after this triggers,
Yeah, then
you
you
would
just
technically have lost
immediately-
concentrate. You would have gone down to 0. So your wildfire spirit would do this instead, basically, which would free you up to immediately after this wild
I don't
shaping
think
gain
you
it.
would lose because
No, I
it's
don't
if
think you
you
would.
if you drop to 0 and don't die, you
drop to 1
You
instead.
drop to 1 point
Okay,
instead.
so that's the thing. So yeah, you could still do it. You would
If
just
you wanted
give
to, but-
up the wildfire
Right,
as
right.
cost, basically.
But
yeah,
yeah,
you
all
have-
of a sudden you're uber tank.
Yeah,
you're
okay.
now
Wanted to.
level
So that-
14, and at level 14, you've hit what I think a normal druid's max CR creature range
Just one.
is.
Just one.
Yeah.
So hold on, a Druid is a D8 hit die, right?
Yes.
So assuming average health for a
Think.
Druid is at this level would, if you had straight average the entire time, would be just over 70 because you get max. It'd be like 74. You get basically your full health back in under some because you're probably gonna roll.
I wonder why they
higher
didn't just do that then. Why don't they just rather than drop to 1 HP, you just full heal. So that way you still get the effect of having that tanky option once per long rest.
I think it's because temp HP is lost on like a short rest or a long rest, right? So
Oh.
it's
They
kind
don't
of
want
just for
you
that fight.
abusing it because they know for a fact if like you were to do the temp HP and then take a rest, and you could just abuse the long rest mechanic to constantly have this going.
Right. Okay, I guess
So
that makes
it
sense.
is an important distinction.
Sure.
But yeah, so overall, I think if we want to give our final thoughts, I think
Yeah.
this is a powerful subclass. I love the flavor. I came into this, and I had a feeling my opinion was going to be changed, but A+ on this.
Yeah.
I have
This
one concern.
is Insane.
This spell is this subclass is great. I think pretty strong, but I don't think it's too strong to warrant it being labeled overpowered. So I'm not going to give it that.
It's almost a totally different type of
Yep.
druid compared to most others.
Love the flavor. However, fire is one of the most highly resisted damage types of the game. So your whole shtick is doing fire damage, and there's going to be a lot of instances where this druid feels a little sad because their
Yeah,
abilities
shit.
aren't hitting as hard as they
Imagine
want them
going
to.
to hell and being
Yes.
this druid. It's like, well, I can't
Running-
do anything.
Running this druid in like the newest adventure book out right now, the Descent into Avernus or Avernus, however the fuck you say it, it would be sad because like you're.
I think you either you have to take the magic mastery feat or whatever to gain the you ignore resistances for a specific type, which you take fire, or
Mhm.
I think they need something like death clerics where they ignore certain resistances or immunities to fire. Like I feel like that is a crucial thing for this.
So yeah, that's just keep that in mind. It's very good, but you're playing this druid. I'll warn you out there if you ever try it. Be prepared to run into quite a lot of things that have fire resistance, and
Yeah, I
your
would like
core
what would you
abilities
think
are going to be a little bit
to-
nerfed.
What would you think to probably not like around 6th or 10th level getting something where I wouldn't say ignore everything, but immunity becomes resistance becomes nothing, right?
I don't know. It's something to consider, but I don't want to make the class too strong. Because you got to keep in mind, it's still a druid, which means druids get access to all their spells, and druids still have a lot of non-fire options out there. So
I will
there's ways
also
to deal
say-
with it, and you also got to keep in mind. I mean, you still are going to have the ability to still heal, adding additions, like those situations. You might play the role of healer a little bit more because you can still get your things like the D8 to heal and.
Yeah, and also keep in mind for second level the spirit, you're gaining basically one of the rogue abilities where you can bonus action help, which is pretty good. You can bonus action give advantage on
True.
certain
Bonus
things.
action.
So there's
Bonus
this-
action help is useful, giving people advantage. So there's still some uses. It's just not going to be as strong as being able to do that juicy fire
so
damage.
Maybe they don't need something to affect resistances.
Yeah, I don't think I would. I think still leave it as is, but just keep in mind, there is going to be a lot more instances where you feel a little bit underwhelmed because you're just all your shit's resistant. So
Yeah. What do you
that's
think?
my final thoughts.
I think the same. It's super cool. I want to play one.
That's Nate's thing to
It's
everything.
me the collection of this. I want to play everything that's been released.
Let's
Yeah.
move on to
It's
the
not
final.
for sure.
Let's move on to the final subclass so we can wrap up here our main thing. I love this. I don't think Bryce said he liked this very much. This is gonna be really interesting. Why don't you talk about this a little bit?
So this is the Onomancy school of magic. It is the
For the wizard.
practitioners of for the wizard for the power of names and their strengths, which flavor-wise, fantastic. I love the idea that like true names in the world are a powerful thing that learning someone's magical or like whatever their like originating name is pretty good. Starting at second level, you gain one language of your choice and proficiency with calligraphy supplies.
I've used those once.
Yeah, I mean, I guess calligraphy supplies is kind of like we use it in my game, but that's kind of like us for a specific reason. If you don't have a game where maps are important, then who cares? Language can be useful, I suppose. But more importantly, the whole thing about this actual class, you get extract name at second level. You can magically compel a creature to divulge its true name. As a bonus action, you target one creature within 60 feet. You must make a wisdom saving throw against your spell DC. On a successful save, you know that it failed, and you can't use it against them ever. On a failed save, the target is charmed by you until the end of your next turn, and you mentally learn the target's name or the fact that the target lacks a name. You choose this feature, and every time you can use this equal to your intelligence modifier. Something that only just dawned on me. Aren't there a lot of fiends and things that are immune to being charmed?
Yes.
Yeah.
This class's biggest strength would be that it can counteract most devils, demons, and fiends by finding out their true name,
But that's a charm.
but they can't charm them out of it.
I kind of like that, honestly, because my biggest concern with this subclass was breaking any kind of DM's adventure into hell.
You take this to
where
Avernus and
you win, because
You
the
win.
biggest thing for any devil is knowing their true name. It's a huge thing, right? Even for demons, it can be a problem. So having that limitation, I'm oddly kind of in favor of it.
Yeah.
I would. Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
it's.
I'm curious
it's
what you
solid.
think, BB, because you're currently running a adventure in hell.
Yeah, if we could
Yeah.
just be like, hey, what's your name again? Like
Yeah,
everybody
hey,
has a
what's-
hello, my name tag is
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I personally think it's fine. I mean, normally because being charmed is going to be a pretty significant thing. But yeah, I think the creatures that most benefit
Charmed
from
is
having
nice.
their name known is, like you said, devils and stuff. So who are going to be immune to that charmed effect, so that it kind of balances out a little bit. And you also have to keep in mind too, like knowing a devil's true name is good to an extent. It's not as bad as you think. I mean, obviously, devils typically want to mask that for good reasons, but it's really only mostly used in the ability to like control them in like summoning magic and stuff like that. Like
Spells
I know-
that exist now, yep.
right, so it's not like you know their true name, you can insta kill them or anything like that, right? So it's not.
Well, this
But
class
if
maybe.
you role play it properly, though, I feel like most devils, like if you threaten to reveal their name or something, like that gives you power not only mechanically but in like
Yeah.
role
Well, like,
play
if
with
you
them.
No devil's
if you
gonna
have
want
a way
that.
of getting to the devil, period. Like if you can actually, like if you're in a point where you can learn the devil's true name with this ability, you're already face to face with them.
Yeah.
You can just be like, I don't need to use a summoning circle. You do this, or I'm gonna give every wizard in a fucking 30,000-mile radius your name, and you'll be basically the world's plaything.
But, like,
I'm personally okay with it because it's going to be useful for non-devils and stuff like that. It's going to be even useful for those. It allows you to run, still higher level stuff because a lot of things later on have charming immunity and stuff like that, and so you still get something out of it because the knowing a true name, especially later on in this class, is going to grant you a whole bunch of shit.
I will say as well, I just double checked. There's actually a lot of fiends that don't have immunity. Even there is
Really?
a CR20 fiend that doesn't have immunity to being charmed.
Oh, so they can still be, which is basically the charm just means it's only for you. Like they can't, they won't attack you per se.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. It's not like the standard charm where it's like they'll do your bidding. It's just that they will not see you as a
charmed-
hostile entity.
Yeah, charmed isn't like controlled. I mean, certain spells as part of the
It's
charm is you
similar-
can control them. Charm just means the charmed creature can't attack the charmer, or the target the charmer or targets the charmer with harmful abilities and magical effects. The charmer has advantage on any ability check to interact socially with the creature. So honestly, like if you're fighting something, yes, you might be able to get that. And even if you get the charmed off, it just means that they're not going to attack you, but they'll still attack your friends.
Yep. So, I mean, overall, actually, I like it. Even more, second level, you have Fateful Naming. You can bend magic to assist or hinder. You can stymie creatures through the powers of their true names. And even use those names to anchor effects around them. The Bane and Bless spell are wizard spells for you, and you add them to your spell book for free. They are always prepared, don't count against anything.
Those are good.
You can cast either spell without expending a spell slot if you speak the true name of one target of the spell before casting it, or as part of casting it.
Sorry, Nate, I'm going to cast Bane on you every time so I can cast it free on the enemies. I'll cast Bless on you later.
You can do this equal to your intelligence modifier. All you need is one of your party members to be like, sure, you can find out my true name, and you can give your party Bless for free a good number of times. That's pretty good.
Strong. Pretty strong.
And if you do have like a barbarian, you can just sacrificial pawn them as a Bane, and you can get a free Bane cast on other targets.
Wow. But the Bane thing is huge, because Bane can be incredible. Like, people don't brush that off. A D4,
it can change everything. A fight.
It can change anything. Yeah. So, knowing someone's true name and then getting a free Bane on them. Yeah,
especially having both of those spells available to you all the time,
permanently prepared.
Because like normally it's like, well, am I going to take Bane or am I going to take Bless? Because you don't necessarily want to.
Right.
I think we're running into that issue in our campaign right now, because like basically at this point we both agree one of us has to run the opposite, or else it's because we can't just not have them.
So yeah, I mean that's really good. That's a really good ability.
Yep.
Like
and so for all around second level, pretty good. Sixth level, you get resonant utterance.
Utters.
You learn words of power called resonance. I love the flavor of that. I'm a big fan of words of power. The power word spells are some of my favorites, which allow you to tailor your spells to the use of your target's name. This is now we're going to get into some getting a deep dive into mechanic stuff. When you gain this feature, you learn 2 resonance of your choice, and you gain every time you gain a level, you can replace one with another. And you gain some extra going down. So, whenever you use it, or if you want to use a resonant, you can, whenever you cast a wizard spell and speak the true name of a creature targeted by the spell, you can use a resonant to modify it. And you can do this a number of times equal to half your wizard level, round it down, and you gain this on a long rest. So, the resonants are as follows. You have Absorption. When you cast a spell that deals damage to the named target, you regain 3d6 temporary hit points. This goes up as you level. Devastation. If the spell requires the named creature to make a saving throw, the creature has disadvantage on the first save it makes. Pretty good.
Really good.
Dissolution. The first time the named creature takes damage from the spell, the creature takes an extra 2d8 force damage. This goes up as you level.
That's really strong.
If the named creature is affected by any other spells, you know what those spells are, and can attempt to end one of the of your choice by succeeding on an intelligence check DC equal to 10 plus
free counter spell.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid.
Free dispel magic.
Well, yeah, it's free dispel magic. You're right.
You're putting your paladin in his place, reminding him who's the real caster here is.
Puppetry. First time the named creature takes damage from the spell, you can knock the creature prone or move it up to 10 feet, either directly or away from you. No saving.
That could be incredibly dangerous.
Very much so. Sympathy. If the named creature is within range of the spell, you can target the creature with a spell even if you can't see the creature or it has total cover against the spell. So if you just are like, come on out, I'm gonna find you, and if they can hear you, it'll work.
Yeah,
which is kind of funny.
Yep.
Fun fact: this works with Disintegrate, and it will destroy any object in the way of this creature as well.
Yeah.
So if they're hiding behind some kind of invisible barrier or some kind of spell, you will disintegrate the spell.
Pretty good. Overall, unlike the Rune Knight, I think the resonance here are pretty good, pretty balanced.
You like the Rune Knight's not balanced?
I think maybe you get a fair amount of uses than I would expect, but
I would say it feels like a good. It doesn't have the problem the Arcane Archer had.
It's pretty much a better Arcane.
Well, and
Archer.
it also means that you can't. I mean, these are all good stuff, but you can't use them unless you know their names. So basically, if they succeed on that saving throw, the initial extract name saving throw. Which now that I'm rereading it, did we talk on how like the wording of the ability for extract name, by the way, going back on it real quick, it says on a failed save the target is charmed, obviously, by you until the end of the next turn. So and you mentally learned the charmed target's name. So actually, now I'm thinking about that. So if it is immune to charm, you wouldn't learn its name.
That's
Right?
what I
Right.
was saying.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's-
I
yeah.
understand. Oh, that's what you're saying before. Okay, now I am.
But
I am
also, some
understanding.
creatures just don't have names, like it says.
Yes.
Right.
You can learn that it lacks name.
Like a
I'll say,
beast, like-
Bernhardt pointed something out, which is interesting. I'm curious on you guys' opinion on this because it says a true name. This is in the document. True name is the name by which a self-aware creature identifies itself. This name might be the name person was given at birth, or a person has chosen or earned later in life. Or the name's origin. The simplest way for you to know your true name is think truthfully about yourself, and then think my name is. So I assume that doesn't include devils calling themselves like a fake name, right? Because even though they
So there-
identify themselves as that, it's
Right.
There
It's-
is a special thing that's actually written in there that you can use a fake name, but if you use the fake name enough or you use it as a description of yourself often enough, it becomes what represents you as your real name.
I see. Interesting.
So if you were to
So-
like use a fake name to call yourself like the Chosen, eventually you'd feel like you were the actual Chosen, and that
I think
would
it's just one of
become
those things. Like
name.
it, you know, if you tell a lie enough, it becomes truth, kind of thing. Like if you
Exactly.
actually
If
believe
everyone,
that is your name, and
yeah.
you no longer believe I'm telling a lie, I think that's when it
Artificers are
becomes.
good.
I get ya.
Artificers
So
are
which-
good. Artificers are good.
Yeah, but I
That's
think
what I
I
tell
mean
myself.
intelligent creatures like devils who are trying to hide their true name
Yeah.
would say, "This is my fake name," and they would
to Bernhardt's
constantly tell
point-
themselves, "This is my fake name."
to Bernhardt's point on like what I was saying was you just know the true names of your party members then, unless they've got some dirty secret that they're hiding from you.
Which would immediately be revealed because you're like, you know, you'd use your.
You say their name and it didn't work.
They didn't get their bless spell, and you're like, "Oh, what's your
Gerald,
shit?"
you are blessed, and then just
It doesn't like, and then your DM's like, "Well, that didn't
Gerald?
really work," and you're like, "Oh, well, okay, let's
It's like,
explore
hold on a minute here. Stop the combat.
this." Let's dive into your backstory, sir.
But this would, however, work for con artist wizards who have like 18 different passports who just tell
That's true.
random, like different groups of people different names.
Yeah.
this
Like,
never
this
stick
is my
to-
name. This is also my name.
as a DM, this gives me an excellent idea for world buildings. This low-level wizard could gain the ability to like check people's names, like their
You,
identities.
you have basically a bouncer.
An Onomancy would be like
D&D,
DM, like
Like
D&D
TSA.
wizard.
TSA, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I will say one thing though, if you even introduce the idea to have onomancy in your game world, like if you have it introduced as a part of your world, it all of a sudden makes the casual player a lot more reluctant to give every NPC their name
I guess that's fair.
because
true.
now
'Cause
you're
they could fuck with
introducing
you.
a potentially like,
yeah.
hey, if you pay me, tell me the name of that guy that you just talked to.
It's
This
a
big bad Onomancer wizard comes out and is like, "You, Steve,
yeah.
die."
I mean, there's a popular show out there right now. We can use it as an example. CDM's the Chain campaign that they do occasionally. All of the player characters are actually they do just that. They use fake names. They use code names, and I think that's to your point. It just kind of influences that
It's that better
potential
safe than sorry.
story arc you could take with a campaign and be like, okay, you guys are all powerful people in some organization. You use fake names because you don't ever want to be revealed. You don't want to trace it back to us. And then obviously with something like this, this class Onomancy
kind of
is a
idea.
way to bypass that level of trickery. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving on to level 10. I'm not a fan of this. You just gain 2 resonance. The reason I'm not a fan is because most other classes get additional choices for free on top of something. So, and
I mean,
mean-
those resonants are pretty good though. So I'm
They're
honestly
pretty
I'm
good.
okay with it because those
And this is what 10th
Yeah.
level. So when your damage for those resonants go up, you are learning 2 more.
you're
new
getting 2
ones as
more.
well.
Yeah,
I guess
I think
that's
it's
fair,
it give,
yeah.
Your utility
it's giving
is
you more
expanding.
options. Yeah, your options are changing. You're gonna have 4 rather than 2.
not the worst, but
And I will also say that for wizards 10th level, like a lot of the 10th level subclasses for wizards are okay, but not all
I
of them
will
are.
fight you on that. At least School of Divination
Not
is
counting divination,
yeah.
which is like hands down considered the
But
god.
I think
of-
if you're looking from a balance standpoint, I mean, this subclass has a lot going for it in the earlier levels, so maybe it's an
Yeah.
okay thing that the 10th level thing isn't as
That's fair.
juicy. It's just a couple more resonance. Yeah.
if you think about it, Bryce, like what would you put in that situation instead of that? Like what could you
I
potentially
couldn't-
give this
I couldn't
class
think
that
of
would make it
anything.
strong?
I'm honestly okay with it because it just gives you more options now.
I think it's solid. I think at 10th
Yeah.
level, I would happily take 2 more resonance because
I
that
love
pretty much
options.
opens you up to the whole list. It's,
That's
you're just
fair.
missing a couple.
14th level, we get Relentless Naming, which is a funny.
Yeah.
This
so many
ability
cool
is great.
names.
You just call out a
you've
crowd of
learned-
people.
You've learned how to bypass and name creatures' defenses against certain types of damages. When you cast a spell that deals damage to a creature whose true name you speak as part of casting the spell, you can cause the spell to deal force or psychic damage to the creature instead of the normal damage type.
Huge.
That's very good.
Huge.
Phoebe,
A
this is how
fireball
you
that can turn
counter
into
the
a
druid.
psychic for
Keep in mind, though,
Yeah.
it's towards that creature, so everything else is taking fire damage, but you are
Right.
gaining.
But this is also something very powerful because you could use it on one of the end game spells. That's like there's I think 2 or 3 end game spells that are really high damage, but they're like fire spells.
Right.
I
Which
think
are highly
Disintegrate's
resisted.
necrotic, which is if you're fighting a lich, is gonna that's a
I think
problem.
he's like later on when you get like access to like meteor storm.
Yeah, exactly. When you're thinking of
You know,
those
when you're
spells that are
rolling
like
40 d6 damage and fucking you can change
That's
it all the
fair.
force
I
of psychic.
still
That
consider
is
Disintegrate
massive.
to be like pretty massive, but
That's true.
no, I get there are
But
some like Meteor Swarm. I mean,
this-
I'd say Meteor Swarm is still pretty fucking scary, despite being fire.
oh no,
damage.
it is. I mean, it's not like we almost lost a player to it or anything, but
This ability is incredibly strong for the sake of its force or psychic damage. These are both
Mhm.
the least resisted damage types in the game, I'm pretty sure.
Yep, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And you get to choose one or the other. So even if you are fighting something that might be resistant to one, chances are they're not
They're not
resistant to
gonna
the
both.
other. And
Are you
I'm pretty sure
sure?
force
Question.
is the #1 less resisted spell in the game.
How would
So
you
force.
rule?
When we
we'll
go
find
ahead.
out.
How would you rule? It says when you cast a spell that deals damage to a creature, would you rule that as a single creature? Like you can only speak one true name at a time. Like what if you knew like multiple true names? Can you just like rattle them off as like, you're
Relentlessly.
I feel like that's how I feel like the relentless naming part is that when you I feel like this is any named creature you've named in the combat.
No, it's
Well, that's part of casting
any
a spell,
creature whose
so-
name you speak as part of casting a spell. I think technically
yeah,
by those
yeah.
words you can just
By specifying
yell
it,
out
it
their
has to
names.
be.
Yell out the
Just-
entire elementary
If
school
there's-
third grade
if there's-
class
yeah,
of
if there's
attendees.
a school bus of kids and you know all
Yeah.
the kids' names,
Like
you
you're-
can fireball the entire school bus.
Like you're an upset teacher that's like listing off names.
Yeah, I would probably rule. For me personally, I would tell the player, name those names. You have 6 seconds, and however many you get off, that's how it works.
I like
But,
that.
but DM,
Also-
I wanted to meteor swarm the town.
I love the flavor of the fact that like this only works on those that have true names. So if you had a bunch of fiends that are immune to fire damage, they're like fireball them, be like, what was that? And they see their allies like freak out, like, oh god, why?
Yeah, see, I don't like this because it's weird that to me that if you blasted somebody or if you dropped a meteor on their head, they're not taking bludgeoning
They're
damage.
not
It's like so
burning.
I'm imagining this real thing that I don't like this. I think because it functionally acts the same is I think you should just make it so this bypasses the resistances immunities. Does the
Yeah,
same exact thing and doesn't
Yeah,
make a
fair.
meteor turn into
It-
psychic damage. I don't like that flavorfully.
It basically warps
would get a headache.
reality.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
a
it should
little
just
weird.
bypass because force and psychic are already going to be less resisted, and I think you should just be able to, or maybe just turn immunity to resistance to nothing. I think it's a bit weird. This is a weird ability
Yeah,
to me.
I would like that. Yeah, that
It's
would be-
good. It just doesn't flavor well.
Yeah, it's just weird.
Yep. All right,
Overall
so,
opinions.
Final thoughts. I think this is pretty good on balance. I don't think there's anything really glaring about it. I think overall it's pretty. I think it's a little stronger than a bunch of the existing schools, for sure. But
I
I love
hate
the
it.
flavor. This is one of my favorite wizard schools now.
Love the flavor. The flavor is
I-
superb.
I mean, I like it as a class. I hate it because it's a wizard thing.
Nate,
I think wizards have
Ye-
too many options.
Yeah, I think it's the best out of the 3 options from this.
really?
What we went
Oh,
over
that's interesting.
today.
My vote was going to be Wildfire Druid, but that's interesting.
Mm.
You think this is the best one?
I like the flavor and I want to play it.
There it was. I was waiting to call you out on that. Great. So that's gonna do it for that. We've touched on each of the 3 Unearthed Arcana ones for that.
So how
Next
far
week-
over did we go?
Next week we will we'll head back another document of Unearthed Arcana. I think that one only has 2 subclasses, so that'll be a little bit interesting. I think that is
Oh.
the
Can
something
we
of
go
the
back to
something.
the barbarian?
No, that's 2 weeks away. But anyway, so stay tuned for that. I don't remember off the top of my head what they are, but we will. Actually, I should probably just look it up.
Yeah, maybe just like look it up. All right.
I'm looking
If
it up.
only you were in front
It is
of,
this. Oh yeah, it's the Sorcerer and the Warlock. I actually really like these.
Oh,
That'll be a
yeah.
good discussion.
Are you sure? 'Cause I'm
Um,
seeing Bard and Paladin being the next one.
Are you
Bard
sure?
and paladin.
Oh shit, you're right. Oh, there's a lot more than I thought.
I was gonna say we're missing 2 classes here.
Yeah, never mind. I'm getting so yes, the Bard and the Paladin, which both are interesting. But we'll get to those next week.
I actually haven't seen those yet.
We're going to go ahead and take a little mini break, and then we're going to head over to our bonus action segment, where we're going to open the floor up. We're going to talk about anything. It can be related to the main topic. It can be related to anything D&D. Feel free to ask your guys' questions. You can either post them in the Discord or in chat, and we'll start plucking those away and answering anything. It can be anything you want. And we'll talk about that for a little bit and wrap things up. So don't go anywhere.
Watching on the video, because you might, this is going to be other places.
That's true.
We'll just
The
cut the footage
Discord,
there.
Twitter, everything should be down below. We are doing these live Sundays, weekly. Currently at 6 p.m. EST. We have our Saturday games at 6 p.m. EST as well at twitch.tv/the_Dungeoneers. Information should be down below. If you want to post questions for the podcast, feel free to join the Discord and post them in the podcast questions channel or tweet at us and we will see them. But that is going to be the end for us to this. We will leave you till our bonus action, which will be uploaded a day or two after this one is live. So depending on when you're watching this, it might already be up.
Sure. So stick around, and for those watching live, we'll see you in a minute.